Hi, my name is Lucas Hardi. I'm a game artist, and this is a talk I gave at BAF Game 2012, which is part of the Bradford Animation Festival. Uh, Happened about a month ago in November, and I thought I'd better record it, put it up. So I'm going to try and go through this quickly, just so for posterity. And this is a talk about sort of art direction in games, but I called it game art style because that's how gamers talk about it these days, as you can see in this penny arcade comic. But that wasn't always the case. When I was a kid playing video games in the 80s, we would talk about graphics. When my friends and I were talking about what games we were playing, it was all about, are the graphics cool? And that's what ads would talk about. This is the famous Donkey King. It had 4 full graphics screens, realistic graphics. SNES had power graphics. And we don't say that anymore. We say style, and I think that says that gamers now, they understand the difference between what was this weird conflation of game engines and art and the word graphics, and now they understand the difference between engine and art style. So players think style is important. Sometimes hard to grasp why. I'll certainly give you my opinion. To me, it's sort of like a great song. There's lots of different ways to make sound, to layer it together, but that doesn't make a song. Style is sort of a recipe for bringing sounds together in a way that makes a great song, make music. And I thought about showing a clip of, like a symphony or something here. Then I remembered this clip from Hustle and Flow. I think you'll have to click through to the actual video so I don't double encode it here, but go check it out and come back. And whether you like this music or not, it has massive amounts of style. And in a way, game art comes together the same way as freestyle hip-hop. Got all these different elements that are sort of layered together on the fly to create a composition. I think it's interesting to look at games that have a long lineage that existed in every console generation, like Mario and Metal Gear. And the artists making these games were up against huge technical constraints. They had like a 16 pixel block and they had to make it look like a guy. And it's really hard to do. It's just that, forget about style for a second. And, Pixel Mario here has thumbs, which is a major achievement for that artist. It was kind of like painting a canvas with Legos. And you can see how these games sort of evolved through the generations. And as those technical constraints started to change, in some cases go away, they developed their own style. And today they're very different. And we almost had a little bit of a genre split at the 3D leap. We've got 2D Marios today, and some 2D stealth games that are sort of carrying the torch for Metal Gear, I would say. Get my notes here. Now, I think this shows how much styles opened up with modern hardware and game engines. Today, there's a huge style landscape available. And my favorite way to map that landscape is with something from Scott McCloud's book, Understanding Comics. And I call this the style triangle. I can't remember which he calls it, but essentially it's a tool for, he uses it to map the style of different comics. In the bottom left corner, he's got reality, so a photo of a face. The top is abstraction, and the bottom right's meaning. And for comics, he's got text there as well as images, because comics layer text and images. So let's break this down a little bit. In the bottom left, reality, so a photo of the face. In the top, abstraction. This is from our penny arcade comic at the beginning. And in the bottom right, meaning. So he makes the point in the book that you can draw 2 dots in a line and show it to pretty much anybody from any culture in the world, and they'll say that's a face. It's sort of a pure meaning drawing of a face. So I love this triangle. You can take anything visual and plot it on here, including games. For a quick example, let's look at racing games. Starting with Realism. Luckily, racing games don't have to worry about the Uncanny Valley, so you can get way down in that corner. And you might have something like Forza, which aims to have a real racing experience. At the top, you might have something like Res or maybe Wipeout, which is about feeling of speed or exploration. On the bottom right, I've got Line Rider, which is really just about the shape of that line. And traversal, pure mechanics, in a sense. Revisiting our history for a second, with, if you take our Mario and Metal Gear thing and you flip it, it kind of maps like this. In earlier generations, you were kind of limited to the right side a little bit, and things have opened up with modern hardware and game engines. And I think it's probably pretty good that Mario stopped where it was, or things might have gotten a little weird if it went too far down to the bottom left. So I want to talk a little bit about Uncanny Valley type stuff. Lots of folks are very keen on getting down into reality corner over here. And so why is that? What is the attraction? A lot of people think that this is the only way to raise sort of the experience, to elevate it, to make it the highest quality, to immerse players more. We see a lot of trailers for video games nowadays that are either live action or pre-rendered to look highly realistic. But we don't see that same thing when we play the game. And you could actually shoot things in live action and play them in the game if you wanted to. But we work very hard as game developers to try and smooth out that dissonance between the storytelling bits and the gameplay bits. We want the whole thing to work as one single experience. And the problem starts because if you try and take gameplay all the way down into reality corner, it doesn't work. And gameplay is sort of fundamentally abstract. Like if you made a game that was a full simulation of reality in every detail, it wouldn't be a game, it would be real life. So gameplay actually requires a level of abstraction to be fun. And this is not a conflict that's going to disappear with new graphics hardware or better game engines. Gameplay will always be a stylized version of reality. So we need to consider art style in that context. Now, these game artists, we talk about this all the time. People might say, oh, the next game engine's coming. Unreal Engine 4 is coming. We're going to solve this. Games are going to have characters that are as expressive, believable as Gollum or Avatar or Navi. Well, for one thing, those are stylized characters. They're not realistic humans, but I often agree with these people. I agree, and we're going to have characters that are totally believable and realistic. And there are games that are carrying that torch and doing a great job, like Heavy Rain and LA Noire. But there's always a challenge there, and that's that inevitably the player is going to take control. And there's going to be a seam. And some of the best games coming out these days and work very hard to smooth out those seams, dance around those seams. And every game does it a little differently. But this is not something that's going to go away with a new console generation. Narrative and gameplay are strange bedfellows. So this is why style is so important to games. Style allows us as game artists to craft an abstract reality, an internally meaningful reality, that if we deliver it with a consistent, steady hand, will lull that player into the magical realm of believability. This is suspension of disbelief. This is the illusion of life. It's that state of mind where it all feels real. And when it feels real, you get experiences like this clip. It's called Immersion's short film. I'm going to link to it in the YouTube. Go check it out. It is super worth your time. Now, as game developers, we create this impression by aligning gameplay and art style. They've got to be doing the same thing, going to the same place. Gameplay and art style working together. Now, this brings us back to the triangle. You can use the triangle. It's a fantastic tool for thinking about your game style, your gameplay. You can plot your gameplay experience in the triangle and use that as a guidepost for your art style. Is your game a deep simulation, like Skyrim? Is it crisp fun, like Triple Town? Or is it abstract exploration, like Rez? Your art style must align to that gameplay. And coming up in the next part, I'm going to talk about how you can specifically develop an art style. So I hope you'll check out that coming right up.